Inspired by a lot of the recent discourse around Payday 2 and Payday 3's relative player counts, systems and functionality, I want to wade in purely on Payday 2's side this time. It's no secret that I love this game. I've done everything there is to do within it, and then some, completing my own custom challenge rule set playthroughs and speedruns, but even I must admit at the dawn of Payday 3, I was happy to finally have the opportunity to cover something new and different. But after a few months, and I don't want this to be another video ranting and railing on Payday 3's failings again, I actually think this was a natural revelation that I probably should have anticipated. I've fallen back in love with the game once more. Payday 2 is still an incredible experience, and as the Greyjoys used to say back before Game of Thrones nosedived in its final season, what's dead may never die. The dead game, to end all dead games, is still very much alive and thriving, so I want to explore exactly what it is that makes Payday 2 such a phenomenon of modern gaming, such that over 10 years into its lifespan and several months since its last content update, it's still one of the best and most complete co-op experiences you can play on PC. Before I dive into what makes the Payday 2 formula so special in my eyes, I want to discuss what's really been frustrating me in recent months. There's just this passive understanding and expectation that Payday 2 is successful for reasons other than it simply being a brilliant game. Of course, its longevity is a product of a myriad of factors, some of which do extend beyond gameplay, but when we boil it down to all its simplest components, it really is just a bit special. I myself returned to Payday 2 for a certain challenge run recently, no prizes for guessing which one from the gameplay, and came to this realization almost pervasively. As I sunk more and more hours into the NG run, even playing this quite unconventional way, I was passively enthralled by Payday 2's brilliance once more. The run took upwards of 40 hours because there just is that much gameplay to sink your teeth into, and it's just scratching the surface of the game's replayability. Of course, not everything has to be a competition. Although many out there see this differently, Payday 2 continues to succeed on its own merits, and Payday 3 remains in its shadow, not just because it's a less content-filled game, but also because it's a very different game, with some admittedly brilliant innovations, but most systems outside of its core gameplay loop holding it back. So no, Payday 2's success is not a product of any sort of protest at its beleaguered sequel, nor is it just entrenched players with nothing better to play. It's not even down to how cheap and accessible the game has become in recent years, although I'm sure that's contributed to the numbers we see. No, in truth, it's purely a result of Payday 2's high quality, easy to pick up, tough to master gameplay loop, and immense content density helped even further by how replayable that all makes it. Let's start by taking a look at the features that have really hooked me on Payday 2 over the years with the game's narrative and character roster. Being honest, Payday 2 started life as one barely cobbled together plot thread. It was always more about its characters of Bane, Dallas, and new additions like Vlad than it ever was about some sort of overarching story. But as time went on, those characters actually started to develop, and from their development came even deeper personality traits, more loyal fans, and the makings of a criminal narrative that could actually capture the imaginations of the community. The Dentist joined the Contractor roster, adding new canonical mechanics to develop intriguing narrative threads even within individual heists. Hoxton returned, burned and bitter, with ready formed relationships and rivalries that created new dynamics within any heisting team. Hector was discovered to be a traitor, and characters like Vlad became more unpredictable and difficult to trust. This narrative was formed around and driven by its iconic characters, so we were all in even when the plot went the way of aliens and ancient gods. Wordsmith's tenure writing the Payday 2 story wasn't adored by all, but the breakneck pace of Locke's betrayal, losing Bane, unearthing the Kataru and eventually bringing the fight to their front door was something most could appreciate, is simply because the heists of that era were some of the most engaging and intriguing we'd ever witnessed. All the while, the roster of optional heisters grew, each with their own personalities, relationships to the gang, and even unique weapons and playstyles, tightening the bonds players had with their favourites. It was, and still is, in my opinion, the golden standard for introducing and integrating an ensemble cast of original and franchise characters, whilst retaining the game's initial themes and identity. Just don't look too closely at Ethan and Healer. Modern Payday 2 maintained these expectations with new interesting and well-voiced characters like Blaine Keegan and Gao Feng, showing that the franchise could even create engaging mini-plots centered around different criminal organizations and regions. Of course, no matter how good the storytelling is and how much you adore your favourite heister, you still wouldn't touch the game if the heists weren't pretty damn magical in themselves. Payday 2's heist offering has really evolved over the years, not only growing wider, but also deeper with new mechanics and experiments leading to some truly unique experiences. Multi-day offerings are a really interesting option that might have led to some slightly uneven gameplay from day to day, but adds a real sense of progression and jeopardy to every heist we take on, peaking with the genius of the Reservoir Dogs heist when it took its Tarantino theming one step further and threw chronology out of the window, having day 1 take place after day 2, dropping an incredible narrative bombshell in reverse order. Big Bank evolved the asset system with deep pre-planning that allows your crew to dictate how you want to approach the objectives in the heist, where supplies should be hidden, and how you can escape at the end of it all. It added hours of replayability to every heist that returned to flesh out the system, with the Golden Green Casino heist still holding the record of the most potential favour placements. Spectacle heists such as Birth of Sky or the Biker Heist Day 2 push Payday's poor old diesel engine to its very limits with impressive visuals and set pieces, whilst heists like Meltdown made use of its old functionality as a racing game engine by adding drivable vehicles to the game. Stealth-only heists were added, some being tight corridor experiences like the Yacht Heist and Breaking Feds, which really test the limits of your mechanical understanding, whilst more open-plan heists like Shadow Raid are evocative of the immersive sim genre, allowing you to carve out your own path towards a successful hit. Linear heists such as Hell's Island exist to immerse you in the narrative, whilst others such as First World Bank or the White House house hidden secrets that can completely change Payday's own genre. Hell, even though the Goat Simulator heist is derided by some in the community due to its perceived lack of balance and mechanics that clash with how Payday 2 is traditionally played, it still remains an absolute staple of hardcore challenges for those who want to prove their mettle within the upper echelons of gameplay experience. From the cinematic movie heists evocative of Hollywood, such as Crude Awakening, to the small-time hits on local banks and high streets, they all exist to ground and immerse you in this world and come together to form an intricate tapestry of heisting perfection. You appreciate that time you ended the rat who betrayed Hoxton, or stole the presidential pardons from the White House, not in spite of those petty jobs you slaved away on to progress through the ranks of infamy, but because of them, with each heist success being just as satisfying as the last. Payday 2, as it stands, after those 10 years of updates, has heists that cater for everybody's taste, and you'll still find yourself even playing through those that don't, as that's what the addictive flow of Payday 2's heisting loop is all about. Again, a hot topic at the moment, but this is why CrimeNet's heist browser and fixed lobbies work so well, as you just find yourself stumbling into each heist with a gleeful ambivalence and sticking with a crew just to see what else you can help out with. Heists are fully community driven, but that connection is lost without CrimeNet. And that isn't even touching on the fact that all 87 unique heists in the game are incredibly replayable, not just due to the randomization of objectives and pre-planning, but also because of how variable resistance is on each heist. From one run to the next, cop spawns will never be exactly the same. Recently, I was gunned down by a pair of doses early in one Heat Street attempt, yet the next had open roads for the first half of the heist before SWAT van turrets spawned to make the escape on the second run much more difficult, whereas it was completely possible that the first might have just front-loaded its crippling challenge. Because there are these potential RNG curveballs and cop spawn logic is completely open from the start, no heist ever feels quite the same as the last time you completed it. Bringing it back to a Payday 3 example, with special enemy spawns being tied to objective progression and only changing from one assault wave to the next, everything becomes painfully predictable. But in Payday 2, you can never really get used to the enemy types you'll be forced to face down at every stage of the heist. Unpredictability, player choice, and a satisfying base gameplay loop. Those are the three pillars of Payday 2's endless success that has people replaying the game up into the thousands of hours. And if you want to talk even more about replayability, you have to touch on all the additional modes Payday 2 offers. Not everyone loves Holdout, but even if we discount that area defense round-based mode, we still have access to Crime Spree, a unique multi-heist concept that channels the old pro job formula by encouraging you to greedily romp through multiple unconnected heists one after another to increase your reward, but also increase the difficulty with harder hitting enemies and modifiers to make progression more challenging. This risk versus reward concept suits the gameplay and themes of the game incredibly well, even if it isn't quite as popular as it once was. And speaking of modifiers, any heist in Payday 2 can be played out alongside a series of challenging mutators, ranging from the ridiculous to the hilarious and also immensely difficult. I think it's to the credit of the base game that these modes don't see a ton of play online, but even so, they ensure you'll never get tired of what Payday 2 has to offer. But hell, if the heists do start to grow a little bit stale, why not just change up your build and playstyle? I don't think there are any games out there in this genre with as many weapon and build options as Payday has. The perk deck system works incredibly well alongside its gameplay loop, generally speeding up gameplay and taking it down a more arcadey path that I'd say most fans of the game appreciate, With 22 individual decks, at least 15 of which being viable on higher difficulties, there are already dozens of base playstyles without even considering your choice of weapon or skill build. Payday 2's skill system itself is nothing revolutionary, but it is a great example of how not reinventing the wheel can work to keep things easy to understand and accessible. It's a 5 archetype system, with each base concept offering 3 different branching styles of play. Brilliantly, it doesn't limit you to a single tree or archetype, instead allowing you to mix and match to create your own hybrid playstyle that works for you. Whilst a few skills have risen to the top to become staples in almost every build, that's inevitable for a game like this, and almost every skill setup you create will save at least half its points for flair and role-playing skills, instead of just having to stick to some predefined meta. Build optimization is huge and satisfying in Payday 2, but so are those unconventional skills that can be played out for laughs or just fit a unique niche, like the endless hilarity badgers seem to eke out of just whacking a drill back into action using Kickstarter. Skill and perk synergies are very real and should be considered, adding some nuance to the building process, as it feels as if every build you create has some sort of power option that really defines how you play and which situations you're well suited for. Skills such as Inspire, Joker, Graze, Iron Man or Body Expertise can enhance the way you play and save heists from failure, whilst there's always something satisfying about specialising in shotguns, pistols or snipers and seeing your build bring out the best in those weapon categories. Speaking of the weapon variety Payday 2 offers, there's very few tastes that aren't catered for. Every historic subcategory of shotgun, sniper or assault rifle under the sun is considered, whilst the game's general disregard for realism has opened up the addition of akimbo options alongside the even more ridiculous choices such as RPGs or even medieval crossbows. More recent DLC additions have really opened the floodgates for weapon variety, as grenade launchers received new ammunition types, secondary snipers were added to the roster, and class hybrids were created to evolve the LMG, SMG and assault rifle categories. After 10 years of iteration, Payday 2 has ended up with one of the widest ranging weapon and build combinations in all of gaming, catering for gun nerds and lovers of absurd setups in equal parts. Few games do build customization better, and the soft RPG themes fit perfectly into the complete experience. Mods are also a surefire way to keep that experience fresh. Payday 2 has one of the best and most prolific modding communities in all of gaming, with your options ranging from complete gameplay overhauls to new DLC quality additions, custom heists, custom weapons, custom Dallas. There's currently over 21,000 mods for the game, and they're all bloody brilliant. HUD mods alone have kept me playing the game for over 10 years, and if you somehow still haven't given modding your copy of Payday 2 a go, look no further than my mod showcases over the last few years. I neglected to make one for 2023, and I'm already regretting that decision when modding legends like Matt Helzor are still putting out some of their highest quality creations in 2024, recently modernising the Payday gang's face models to fit what's expected from games in the current year. One area where Starbreeze have absolutely got things right in the past has been their financial support of this subsection of the community, as I believe they have a lot to thank them for after propelling Payday 2 into the incredible and customisable game it is today. The value behind making mods accessible and throwing substantial weight behind their most talented creators is evident for all to see. Finally though, what makes Payday 2 just that bit more special than a regular game in my eyes is its atmosphere and impeccable theming. Few games are able to immerse you in such an inaccessible fantasy as being a master criminal as well as this one is. It's not that we all want to go outside and commit crimes, I just think that the romanticised concepts of standing unafraid in the face of authority, bringing anarchy to a civilised city, or pulling off the perfect silent heist without being seen activate some fantasy neurons that don't get tickled by much else. Payday 2 lets you explore those urges that regularly remain locked deep within your imagination, and does so with all the style and panache of a Hollywood set piece without ever taking itself too seriously, such that the reality of your actions set in against your conscience. The game is both brutal and light-hearted, playing off its character's very human traits to prevent you from ever feeling like a true villain. I think it speaks volumes of how well this was executed when you consider how shocked we were by Hoxton's brutality in the Follow the Money live-action promo for Payday 3. We love Hoxton, he's a cranky asshole, but we don't necessarily consider him capable of breaking an old lady's fingers just for the fun of it. Yet, that wasn't out of character at all, it's just we've known and been sympathetic towards these characters for so long that they feel like they should be the good guys. This is how Payday 2 straddles the line between being the kind of game Congress would want banned, hella Manhunt or something, and almost being a child-friendly parody of those violent video games your mum didn't want you playing as a kid. It's kinda genius, and I believe Payday 2 does it better than any other game in the franchise. And that isn't even digging into what makes its atmosphere so incredible, despite its graphical limitations. Through clever use of smoke and lighting, certain heists feel tense and on a knife edge, Whilst the gang's globe-trotting in recent years means the environmental artists have been able to take us from a Sicario's Mexican villa to the vibrant streets of Chinatown and eventually a sweltering, dusty ranch down in Texas. Heist and objective variety has been huge, but so too has been the visual flair with which each heist setting has been crafted and considered. Oh, and as more than just an aside, the music is up there with the strongest soundtracks in all of gaming. Some serious talents have worked on this game, and there's hardly a track in it that doesn't get the blood pumping. All that said, whilst Payday 2 has just gone off sale on Steam as the holiday period's come to an end, it's still absolutely worth putting on your wishlist if you haven't already for a future sale. Hell, I think it's more than worth the money at full price, but when you know it often sells for cheap, why not take advantage? The huge swathes of DLC can be a little off-putting, but there are so many bundle options it's easy enough to pick through everything you need to have a ton of fun with the game. The crux of this video for me isn't to attack Payday 3 for not being Payday 2. I never wanted it to be, and whilst I think it's forgotten a few too many lessons of the past, I still think the game is better off in the long term for being its own experience. No, the main purpose is to celebrate Payday 2 for what it is today, and challenge this revisionist narrative that suggests it's gone downhill over recent years. I truly believe we have what's pretty much the best version of this game and franchise we've ever witnessed, as it stands right now. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the conclusions of this video down in the comments. Happy 2024. Here's to a big one where I hope Payday 3 starts to move in the same positive direction Payday 2 did some 10 years ago. Check out Apex Gaming PCs, January sales abound if you're looking for a new PC to play a fully modded Payday 2 on. I'll see you all very soon in the next video. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.